It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obiuchendu. Yes, times are still weird. The coronavirus pandemic is still going on across the world. The numbers are not slowing down, especially here in Nigeria. A lot of people seem to forget that there's a virus out there still killing people. It is still very active. We've topped, I think, 12,000 cases in Nigeria now, with Lagos, of course, being sort of the epicenter of things in the country. Africa is still looking pretty bad. The rest of the world, things aren't looking good either. So whatever it is you do, please remember to stay safe. There are very basic rules. Stay home if you don't have to be out. If you have to be out, remember to wear a mask, and one that is actually effective. Socially distance yourself from people if you have to be out. And please, 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 just stay safe. Keep your hands clean. And if you know you have any symptoms that might worry you, please call a specialist. There's so many numbers out there that the NCDC has put out to make sure that people can get tested and are not infecting other people. As much as we might be easing off our lockdown and going back sort of to normal, let's not forget that lives are still very, very important. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. A lot has happened in Nigeria in the past week and across the world. And rape has been at the top burner here in Nigeria. We're going to be talking about that. Just take a look.
Behaviors commonly associated with rape culture include victim blaming, slut shaming, sexual objectification, trivializing rape, denial or widespread rape, refusing to acknowledge the harm caused by sexual violence, or some combination of these. In the past week, we've seen a growing number of hashtags, voices, protests against rape culture in Nigeria. Journalist Kiki Modi and founder She Writes Woman Hawa Ojefo chats with Ebuka Obi Uchendu. Next on Rubbin Minds.
Thanks for joining us again. Yes, a lot has happened in the past week, like I said. One of them, of course, being probably the most burning from Edo State in Benin City. We saw a 22-year-old girl, Wavera Omozua, who was raped and killed in a church while she was studying, I believe. There's a 15-year-old girl who was raped repeatedly by 4 men in Bauchi State. 18-year-old Jennifer, who was raped by 5 men in Kaduna. 18-year-old Barakat, who was murdered in her home in Ibadan after being raped. So many stories, and it looked like it might feel like it's more reported now, but I don't know if that means that these things haven't been happening. Like you saw there, I'm being joined here by Kiki Mordi, who's an investigative journalist, and of course, Hawa Ochefo, who'll be joining us in Abuja. How are you doing?
I'm very well,
I can see you're wearing black, obviously reflecting the mood of things in the country. What do you think is going on? What is really going on?
What is going on is rape culture is manifesting itself. We've been saying this for years, that we live in a community where rape culture thrives, and people refuse to take our words for it. I don't know if it's the pandemic or I don't know what to call it, but suddenly we can all see what we've been saying for a very long time. Maybe it's technology that gives us access to quickly share information faster than before, but we suddenly are now very aware of the rape culture that we have in our society.
Yeah. What is it about? Do you think anything about the way our culture is set up encourages this and makes it almost sort of thrive here?
Well, when I say rape culture, I'm not exactly accusing our culture as Nigerians or as Africans. I'm saying that the way of life, the way we behave, the way we see women, that's what rape culture is. And rape culture influences our own culture, not necessarily the other way around. I wouldn't say our culture influences rape culture. Our culture is just the way we've known since, the beginning of time, the way we chose to live. But we decided to allow rape culture fester. So it would seep into our culture, our traditions, it will seep into our religion, it will seep into our workforce, it will seep into any single space it finds itself, because we've allowed it to fester for this long.
Yeah, and people keep saying, that a lot of these conversations seem to be had by women. A lot of women have known this for very long, have been having these conversations, have been trying to get men to understand this. How are the men doing with regards to understanding this? Because the truth is the perpetrators are the men, especially with these cases that we have seen. Do you get a sense that men are starting to understand what's going on?
I say they are starting to understand what's going on, but too slow for my liking. Like, we can't wait for you to catch up because we are dying, literally. So it's a pandemic. I would call it that. It's a pandemic we have on our hands right now. So we can't wait for you to slowly catch up. We don't have that time to slowly explain to you, with the tone that you would rather us explain to you that we are dying at the hands of men, literally, because they do not respect or see women as humans or complete humans, deserving of respect.
Let's go to Abuja, because we're joined in Abuja by Hawa Ojefo, who's the founder of She Writes Woman. Hawa, if you can hear me, I don't know, I'm sure you've been following the conversation. There's so much to unpack here. Someone comes to mind now even. I think there was a case in Jigawa of Farashina, who's 12 years old, who was raped by 11 men. You hear things like this, and you wonder, first of all, what does it take now to get these people to justice? Because there's always a belief that, okay, the police doesn't believe the story sometimes, or even when they do, they're almost sort of, their hands are tied. There's also the fact of, how do you prove rape?
Absolutely, Ibuka. It's quite it's very complex. It's a very multi-layered issue, and I think more than that, we need to understand that it's a systemic issue. So a lot of times, what makes the conversation very polarized and it seems like some people are for or against and all of those things is that we don't understand systemic issues. And I always say, if you don't understand systemic issues, you will always think it's about that one issue. You will always think it's a personal attack against a gender or a group of people or culture or things like that. But it's really about a system. It's about a system that has created structures that enable certain kinds of behavior and sort of enable the injustice that sort of have to be. That is more important than anything. I believe that we need to first start that, okay, we have a law. Is it domesticated across all the states? No. But just having that top-down approach is not enough in having just a piece of paper. It is also understanding that we need to reorient the system. So when people talk about police, I'm like, have we forgotten so soon that it was the same police that had the same issue last year where women went and they were also raped as well. So we need a complete reorientation, because it's not going to take any one aspect alone for us to be able to combat this, like Kiki said, pandemic, but it has to be a systemic thing. So while we're doing the legislation, what are we doing in schools? What are we doing in the educational system? What are we doing in terms of reorienting, in terms of religious institutions and stuff like that? Because any one place can totally void the kind of progress that we're trying to make in terms of getting systemic change.
You mentioned a lot about, systems, and I think a lot of Nigerians understand that a lot of these things are a systemic problem, because there's not structures, I know we like to use that word, but very loosely in place. But we did see comments from people in government, especially the House of Representatives, during the week, sort of almost victim blaming, and that seems to be the culture here. Where do we start if we still have those sort of conversations happening in government?
I mean, I think it's really funny that we expect that people in government will be any different. I think it's really interesting. I mean, we forget that these are also members of the society that just happen to get into positions of leadership. And the truth is, they are part of the society. They are part of the system. We all are part of the system. So when we sort of expect them to know better, I'm like, let's reduce our expectations here, because quite frankly, there are people within the society that just got into government. And because, like Kiki said, there is something that has influenced the culture. And it's so important for us to understand that it's not static. It's something that changes over time. That's culture. We make the culture. So when we have not created a culture that allows such issues to be voiced, that allows for safe places to have these conversations, that allows for reorientation and new ways of doing things within our system, then we don't expect that certain people are just going to automatically know, sadly. So I think first we need to reduce our expectations and realize that we even need to reorient our leaders on, things like rape culture and victim blaming and things like that, because they need it first before they are able to properly sort of reflect that in a legislation.
I'll come back to you, Hawa. But Kiki, I mean, that's a very fundamental part of this entire conversation, whether we like it or not. A lot of these laws need to be changed. I mean, there was a whole trending issue on social media where we found out that, 11 is the age of consent in parts of Nigeria. Yes. Things like that are still a part of our laws here. And she mentioned there, about, reorientation. How do we even start this? People are in government who believe certain things. Nigerians also believe certain things. I mean, we've seen the conversations everywhere. When these conversations start, some of the questions are, what was she wearing? Why was she there at the time? Why did she go back to the house? Things like that. How do we start this reorientation?
I think we just need to engage more armies. We need allies, When we talk about fighting rape culture, all of a sudden people think that it's a fight for women when it's a fight for humanity. So we need people to fight this fight because if we say culture, it's not the way of life of women. It's the way of life of every single person. So as a man, you now know better. You should be able to call out your brothers in your small space. You should be able to call out your friends. All right? So if we all do our part in telling the next person that, listen, women are here to stay. They are a huge chunk of the population, and they deserve every right as much as the men do. If we start in schools, in places of learning, in churches, if we fight back, we need to fight back in a systemic way because it's seeping to us and it's seeping through our structures. Structures like the church, structures like mosques, like schools. We need to fight back through these structures. It's not an individual fight. So, like you said, some states, the age of consent in Nigeria is 18, but some states still insist on 11, for various reasons. Some of them are religious. If we can at least have that bare minimum across the 36 states, that the age of consent has to be 18 and it's non-negotiable. We're talking about, and somehow this only affects women. We never hear this age of consent argument when it comes to the boys. It's always about the women. So if we can at least have that bare minimum structure in place. So while we're teaching on one hand, we're persecuting on the other hand. If you refuse to listen, you go to jail. People need to understand that these things are criminal offenses. They're not things like disagreements that we settle amicably as a family. You settle it in jail.
Yeah.
We need to start putting our foot to the ground and seeing this for what it is, a gross criminal, a gross crime against women.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I think the police or security agencies'
Yes.
Conversation is very, very key to this. Because the one thing I know people always say is people are afraid to come forward because they won't be believed, or they believe that those who they report to might not take them seriously or might even turn them to the victims.
Yes.
How do we start that conversation? How do we start to reorientate these people who should be holding victims accountable? Because with the case in Edo State now, we see that there seems to be some action.
Yes.
Maybe because there was murder involved. But if she didn't die, would we see this sort of, pursuit of justice?
Even with the murder, it took public outrage for one thing to get done. But we fail to realize that, it wasn't just Uwa. There's hundreds and thousands of girls at the same time being murdered and raped, in their spaces. And we cannot, every day come out to trend. How many hashtags will we trend?
Exactly.
So, like Hawa said, the policemen are not aliens. They are the same people that are in our homes. The same ones that victim blame us in our homes will go to the office to carry out the same task. So, like I said, while we try our best to do the reorientation, I think the National Human Rights Commission is doing their best to do that reorientation program. It's good that they're even in government so they can spread within the government. While we do that, we ourselves, we should understand that we have a voice and we should hold our leaders accountable. We put them there to take care of us. And if they're not taking care of us, we pull them back out. We ask them, we demand, what are you doing? Why would you make this comment? What are you doing to keep me safe as a woman? Why are my interests not included in this so-called democracy? We should understand that we have that power to keep demanding. I can't fight alone. If 1 million women around the country get up, stand up and say to our leader, say to our president or, our governor, we do not like what you're doing to take care of women. We reject this. We want you to do something better. We want you back. We have that power, but we fail to realize that we have that power.
Yeah. Howard, the culture and religion conversation is also a fundamental part of this. Like we've talked about the age of consent there. We know we've come close to having the debate, I think, a few times in the National Assembly, and it's been shut down for religious reasons. Are we ever going to get past this, you think?
About this idea of religion, whether religion is actually contradicting consent and things like that. And it was really interesting because, again, it's down to orientation, it's down to interpretation. Because if it were so cast in stone in terms of religion, then it will be a worldwide thing. But why is it that it is in certain states. So, for example, let me use northern states in Nigeria. Well, why do we have that? Why do they feel so strongly against the VAP, and they're still going by the penal code, for example? And I feel like it's so interesting, and that's where we have to start reorienting religious institutions. Because if you ask just anybody within the religious space who holds a certain level of influence, do you people practice any form of child abuse, or do you guys practice any form of gender-based violence? They'll tell you no, like emphatically no. But then when you dig deeper, you realize they're doing it. So I think it's almost like there is a gap. There is an understanding gap, there's a language gap. But then if you don't know you're doing something, when you're being asked, you'll be like, no, I'm fine. I'm not doing that. I don't have any concern with this because it's not my area, because we do everything legally here. So it's kind of tricky because we're such a religious country, and for some reason, wherever religion comes into our space, we just lose all sense of logic and reasoning in this country. But I think it's not just about the legislation, because they will always resist that if they feel like the religion permits them to. So we need to begin to have more influential voices within the religious space, because if you now have contradictory voices within the religious space saying, no, you should, and yes, you should, then they begin to listen to each other. So I think, like Kiki said, we have certain levels of power that I feel like we're not really using, and we're not building those allies, because we need allies within the religious space, the people that use religion as sort of a justification for many of these kinds of injustices. I think that, for me, would be a very vital way to go.
Sort of following from what I had asked her about, reporting. A lot of women are still not very comfortable coming up. It's one of the hardest things to talk about for people who go through this. I don't know, are you seeing an uptick in numbers of women who are willing to come out and report? And what do you say to someone who is sort of going through this and still doesn't feel strong enough to talk about it or lay claim about it?
I mean, first off, yes, I do feel a lot more people are being empowered to talk. And I'm using the word empowered because it's not necessarily that. So, like I think we've said before, social media is an amplifier. So when people say, some things are on the rise, I'm like, no, just because you just turn on the light in the room doesn't mean that the stuff you see there hasn't always been there. It's just that social media is amplifying that image. It's showing us for a fact. And what is happening is that when that wave of collective consciousness begins to come, more people feel like, if Hawa's talking about it, if Kiki is talking about it, if all of these women are standing up for justice and they are owning their stories irrespective of what the backlash may look like, because it is there, then I feel like I can do that as well. And that is what we're seeing. We're seeing people feeling more empowered because now they feel like I have a choice. I can speak, as against the default mode of no, keep quiet, no, you're shaming, no, don't air your dirty laundry in public, it's your fault, or people are going to blame you and things like that. So I think that's it. But if anybody who is listening and the person is feeling like, I'm going through this, and, first off, there's no pressure to stand up and tell your story, because I think we also have to be very careful, because it's a very traumatic experience. As a sexual violence survivor myself, I know what you have to go through in reliving your experience almost every single day. And then when you come out to talk about it, you are met with a whole lot of, it's a mixed field. So if you're not ready to talk, know that that's on the one hand, you don't have to. However, you don't have to talk publicly. You can, however, begin to seek some sort of care in terms of counseling and all of that. And you can begin to follow more private channels in terms of maybe persecuting and all of that. But like you said, Ebuka, there are issues regarding, evidence and things like that, especially when it involves one-on-one person kind of, scenarios and things like that. So it's quite complex. I would say prioritize your personal healing first before you then think that you have to go public or you want to join your voice to it, because it can be very re-traumatizing.
Kiki, are you hopeful? Are you hopeful with the way the conversation is going?
I am hopeful. It's math. If we all keep talking about this, and I mean, at some point, it wouldn't be publicly acceptable for people to make rape jokes. As a matter of fact, I see it happening. Some people feel like we're making noise on social media by calling people to order for being inappropriate, but we see that there is a shift. If someone tweets something inappropriate or ridiculous, even the people who have insulted us for being so loud start to say, they're coming for you, or, so things like that. They know, they understand. And in fact, they've always known, but right now they know that it's no longer acceptable.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I mean, it's a space we'll continue to look at because, I mean, a lot of us are learning. And yes. I think that's the most important thing. I am learning, and I hope all men out there in particular, and I keep talking about the men because the victims are not the issue here. It's those who perpetrate the crime that we should be looking at. I noticed that you and Hawa are wearing black, so I guess it reflects the mood, like I said, and I hope people understand how tough this can be. We'll take a break now and be right back. Please don't go away. Johnny Drill is here, one of my favorite artists around. How you doing, man?
Good, good, good. Thank you for having me.
Have I ever
I'm
asked
happy to be
you
here.
where the name is from?
I don't think you have. A lot of people have asked, though.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'd really so badly want to have like a story behind it.
Like a
but
sweet story.
There's just no story. I just picked it up. It sounded like, you know, an artist's name. And
Is your name John?
my name is John, by the way.
Okay.
But drill, nothing.
You're a Benin boy, I believe.
Of course, I'm from Benin City.
Born, bred?
Yes, lived most of my life there until I moved to Lagos 3 years ago.
So there's a belief that certain parts of the country are known to churn out, this sort of talent.
Yeah.
Lagos, to an extent, Port Harcourt, parts of the East. How much is Benin influence all of this? Because
Yeah,
see, there's you now, and there's you
Yes,
up around, and now there's
actually a bunch of-
Rema.
Exactly.
A lot of
You know,
people are starting to
Cynthia
bust that.
Morgan,
Cynthia Morgan.
Scales.
Yeah.
So I believe that a lot of great talent have come from Benin. God rest his soul, Magic Fashek, Sonia Koso and the rest of them, Victor Waifo, the list is endless. So great talent. I mean, from all over the country, but Edo State, we've got our own fair share of talented people. Myself, Rema, doing great stuff.
There's a culture of music, sort of.
Yes, there is. Up
that
until
helps.
before I moved to Lagos, there was, because I had big songs already. Like I had Wait For Me. It was already playing in Lagos a lot. But yeah, I was still in Benin. In fact, I had not even visited Lagos that much. It's amazing because I was able to push music from Benin City, and same with a lot of artists from around the town. And not just Benin, Delta State, it's just our neighbors. Great talent, great musicians all around.
I mean, I was born there as well. So
Oh yeah, for real?
I just, yeah.
Oh wow, it's good to know that.
That's my town.
I should have added you to this.
It's fine. I don't sing. I have no talent with music. But I ask that because there's a belief that that Lagos is sort of a little too dominant in the music scene. There's people who believe with every countdown you see, it's sort of Lagos-centric. Do you agree that Lagos is a little too powerful? I've heard arguments about, this guy is popping in Port Harcourt, but I know you guys have not heard of him. This guy is popping in Enugu, in Kaduna. Is that a good thing for the industry where it seems like one city is a little too dominant?
So it's a tricky question. I wouldn't say if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing. But the truth is that it's our reality right now, because Lagos has become it's become that center where you have to get your music to blow there, and then you get to the rest of the country get to hear your music. And even if you take it to the U.S., for example, LA is kind of like that. Even though the music is a lot more dynamic because you have music in Texas, you have Nashville, the country music, and the rest of them.
Atlanta to an extent
Exactly,
as well.
but the big record labels and the rest of them, you mostly find them in LA and the big studios and all that. So for Nigeria, Lagos has become that. And I wouldn't say it's such a great thing because Nigeria is so big, it's so vast, different cultures. And it'll be great to see someone from the north who's doing so well in the north still be able to get your music played in Lagos. You could be in the East to get your music to be played in Lagos and still, have that impact. Like you don't necessarily have to move to Lagos, but the reality is that that's what it is.
Yeah.
You see, I had to move to Lagos from Benin City. Yeah. I just had to at that point. It was hard traveling back and forth for interviews. A lot of the big radio, TV stations, media houses, you find them in Lagos. Yeah. So you literally have to be here to.
Is streaming going to change that, you think? Because people push their music now on their own.
I think that.
Or Lagos will still be a factor?
For a while, from the way I say it, it's still going to be like that for a while. There was a point that, Port Harcourt, Duncan Mighty, I think Timaya as well, they were making music from Port Harcourt, and it looked like Port Harcourt was beginning to become like a Lagos. But after a while, all that and it still went back to the same old Lagos. Yeah. But I'm hoping that with time that, different parts of Nigeria, they'll begin to develop structures that'll be able to support their artists, and they don't necessarily have to move to Lagos to blow up.
Looking forward to that. But with the kind of music you do, I know you get this a lot. Do you feel the need to sort of appeal to the notion that you are not Nigerian enough with your music? The word I hate, Afrobeats, is the trend. You do your thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what genre you call your music, but it doesn't seem to be the bang bang dim dim that a lot of people like to be a part of. Do you ever feel the need to fall into the pressure?
Maybe once in a while, and also because can't deny the fact that Afrobeat is a big sound from Africa. It's a big sound from Nigeria. It's that big sound. It's what everyone is listening to. Most people, especially from outside of Africa, and of course, also because streaming has become so popular recently, especially in Nigeria, and and the playlisting and all that, and you have to make songs that fit in the certain playlist. The Afrobeat beats playlist. You can't have a folk song and Afrobeats playlist and all that. Maybe once in a while, but I've come to believe that for an industry like the one we have here to grow and even to mature and to become better and bigger, it has to be dynamic. You have to have different sounds, different kinds of music. It's great that Afrobeat is doing so well right now, but we can't at the same time suppress all the sounds that we have. It's beautiful. It's great when an industry can grow and be dynamic, and when we can cater for people that are not doing Afrobeats.
Is there a difference from when you started and now with acceptance?
Of course there is. When I started, there was always that it's not going to do well. Even from my own friends in Benin, I was hearing that a lot from them. You have to do this. This is what people are listening to. That kind of vibe. Do the Afrobeats, the dance, the club. Even when I was meeting like record labels and people that wanted to invest in my music, that after they tell you, hey, I love your music, I love your sound, it's great. The next conversation is, can you do something like this? To pop in the club and all that.
But now it's a little different.
Now, acceptance is great. People have come to accept my music, and especially when I'm having live shows, it just shows me more that, there's people that actually appreciate all the sounds that are not Afrobeat.
So what did you do? What was it that Maven saw? Did you have that conversation with the Mavens where, because there was a quote-unquote controversial statement that I think John Jazzy made in the past about signing on rappers.
Yes.
And he went, so you can't ever have a rapper on your label. And Maven's Mo Hits, they seem to have a style. Did that conversation ever come up with you with changing or tweaking things?
Yeah, so the first time I met Jazzy, Don Jazzy, the first time he told me he wanted me to join Maven Records, one of the first things he told me was, I think he already knew that if people were already like, hey, Johnny Drill, protect his sound, that kind of stuff. One of the first things he told me was that, I'm not going to change your sound. I'm interested in changing your sound. I'm trying to use this Maven machine that I've used to promote this pop acts, this Afrobeats act, to try and promote you as well. He had his concerns, and he wasn't shy about saying them, that, but I'm looking down the line, I'm like, he's did really well, to be able to push a Johnny Drill with a structure that I wasn't used to pushing my kind of music. But there's never been that conversation of, you need to start switching up your sound, you need to start changing. But what I do know is that in time to come, there's going to be a lot of fusion because it's beauty of, music.
And the label is diverse. There's a lot of
exactly. Right now we're even expanding. Now it's Maven Global. The sound is international. We've got Rema, we've got Crayon, we've got, Ladipo as a rapper.
You did something with Ladipo.
Yes, I did. Yes. We had there's a series I called Johnny's Music Mondays for every Monday, every fortnight. So I had Ladipo come on. So you see, it's a dynamic label. It's different sounds, different people.
Yeah.
It's just great.
How's this? I mean, the new world order. it's such a weird time. A lot of us are trying to understand how we can move forward and, most importantly, make a living still in times like this.
Yeah.
What's going on with the Johnny Drill brand with regards to you can't perform the way you
I think the whole music industry right now.
What's happening?
It's interesting times we're in. Coronavirus shut down the world. Shut us down, everybody.
It seemed like it was going to be temporary initially,
exactly,
but it's a little too long
I was
now.
like, yo, and it's not even looking like it's slowing down, and we don't know how long this is going to continue for. I was just reading recently that the global music industry lost about $10 billion this year, and the whole industry is worth about $50 billion. It just makes me see that we need to start looking at more ways to generate income. To be able to sustain ourselves and whatnot, because no live shows are happening right now, and most artists are depending on stream. And the truth is that in Nigeria, compared to the rest of the world, our streaming numbers are pretty low.
Yeah.
So now everyone's trying to figure out ways, to be able to, and I think right now one of the ways people are trying to get by is to partner with brands, because most artists have clout, they've got following that, a lot of brands who are looking to tap into, advertisements and, you know, get their brands out there. They're partnering with a lot of artists these days. Yeah. So I guess everyone's just trying to figure out things for themselves.
Yeah. Are these online things working? Because I've seen a few online concerts. I've seen a few Instagram Live.
Yeah.
The Versus seems to be the thing
Yeah.
now for this. How do you generate income from stuff like that?
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, you have to partner with a brand.
It has to be a brand partnership.
No, but people are coming on your Instagram Live. They're not like...
They're not going to pay you
They're
anything.
not going to pay you. You're not getting money from that.
Yeah.
So, but
is that sustainable, you think?
Right now, it looks like it's one of the few ways. But moving forward, I don't know. We'll probably have to figure out more ways. Globally, it's not just in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Figure out ways to be able to get income aside some streaming.
Yeah. Who are some people you would think are in your headspace when it comes to your genre of music in this country?
All right.
Does somebody come to mind? Are there people who you would...
Of course. So coming to that, like, so there's this tag. They usually tag everybody that's not doing Afrobeats. Everyone is
whether it's soul or jazz or
this.
Yeah, all alternative.
It's crazy. You know, there was a time in Nigeria where, you know, R&B was the pop music, was the big sound, and everything else was alternative, was, you know, but now it's you know, Afrobeat is the sound right now. So I try to stay away from alternative, but if I want to look at people that do different music that's not Afrobeat, you know, there's Nonso Amadi, there's Brimo, there's my friend Rick Asani, T-Jan, you know, there is Chike as well, you know, great, amazing arts, and I really do appreciate them because, you know, it just shows us that the industry is dynamic. There's a lot of amazing artists.
Who would you do a versus with?
A versus? Whoa. Probably a Rikasani.
And win.
Rikasani. I will win, of course. If he's watching right now.
So all those names you mentioned, you think you would go head to head and crush it?
I don't like, you know, to...
But it's what the world has become
what it is right now.
Everybody is doing a versus.
You know.
I mean, it would be nice to see you and a Chike or you and a Rick Asani or you and...
So Rick Asani, Chike, any of these guys.
And you feel like you'll go toe-to-toe with them.
I mean, it's...
Because I'm trying to set it up just mentally now.
I get the point is not about winning or losing. It's just about, you know.
Yeah, we'll have fun, but we also like to vote.
It's you people that want that. You guys want that, but we just want to, you know, play music and sing for you guys.
You mentioned Brimo there, and he's gone through quite a bit of drama recently. You know, especially with the times. You know, we had a conversation about rape earlier.
Yes.
You're wearing black like the other people. You're the one who seemed not to get the memo. Of course, he's denied a lot of the allegations and all of that. But you stay away a lot from drama, and there's people who believe that being in the limelight, you need some of that sometimes because it helps the brand when there's talkability about
controversy.
you. Do you not feel the need sometimes to just throw things out there for people to, because it helps, whether you like it or not?
So as much as I don't like controversy, we at Maven Records, we don't like controversy. I don't even notice. we just stay away from all that stuff. And of course, I know a lot of people try to ride on controversy to sell music or to sell their names and all that. For me, I mean, I just want the music to speak, to be able to speak for itself. I don't want I don't want the news around Johnny Drill to be bigger than, you know, the music. I want you to mention Johnny Drill, and the first thing that comes to mind is great music. And now, hey, he did this, or he did that, or he said this, or he said that. So for me, it's just the music. But there's nothing, I don't have anything against people, you know, especially if it's not controversy that's damaging or, you know, of course, why not?
Yeah. So what sort of controversy would you say is safe?
Controversy that's safe? I don't know. Well, for me, it'll probably be, I don't know. I don't want to say it, but, you know, if it happens,
let's see how
it
we'll
happens.
fit that.
You know, no, I'm not going to say.
Because the funny thing is, there are people who like to stay mysterious, and there's some controversy in that mystery. I'm thinking of a Beyonce now, who there's always, okay, what is she doing now? How is she going about that? I mean, Wizkid to an extent also does that, where you almost kind of don't know what's happening. We're waiting for Wizkid, your album. It's been 2 years now. I mean, there's also something in that. Is that sort of the line you'd rather toe, where people don't know enough, but they anticipate a lot? Yeah,
I think so. That's probably my thing. I'm very introverted. I don't like to, you know, get involved in stuff that, you know, would make me start to think and overthink and, you know, do all that stuff. I just want to make music and make the world happy. That's my thing.
How do you think the music industry is going to recover from this times? Is it going to be a case of until this is done, nothing viable can really happen? Because people are holding back their albums, people are not trying to release too much stuff because it's just going to be a waste of time. You know, you just get, like you said, streaming here isn't even that great, you know, so... how long do you think the music industry can hold out for?
I think, just like, we had our lockdown, everywhere was totally locked down, and then they started to ease the lockdown, not because the cases were reducing or anything.
Trying to now learn to live with it.
Exactly, I think at some point, it's probably going to become a bit like that.
Yeah.
People will just try to now start to find ways to safely do certain things, maybe safely have concerts, limit the numbers, and all that stuff. But I think coronavirus, it's not looking, hopefully by God's grace, things will begin to get better. But it's not looking like that right now. The numbers are still increasing. I think last time I checked, we were at like 12,000, over 12,000 cases in Nigeria alone. So I don't think that. I think people are just going to find ways, begin to figure out ways to be able
to exist with it.
Exactly.
What's next for you, man? What's happening? Any plans still for 2020? I know it's a very. It was supposed to be the year.
Yes, it
for
was.
a lot of people. But is it still the year for Johnny Drill?
Because I was having such a great year when the year started.
January and February were pretty good.
Exactly. February was the month of love. Johnny Drill was everywhere doing shows and
then boom.
Preaching love and all that stuff. And then coronavirus, March, hit Nigeria hard. So for me, but I'm not letting it slow me down. I'm still working on a lot of music. I just released a new song. It's called Something Better. It's a different kind of Johnny Drill, not your usual typical Johnny Drill,
What's unusual about it?
What's unusual is, Johnny Drill is usually, hey, you're the girl of my dreams, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, beautiful, it's just painting love from the beautiful side. But this time I tried to, sing about the other side. So you probably need to go and check that out. Anyways, I'm doing a lot of great stuff. I'm working on new music as well. A lot of collaborations as well.
Yeah.
Still trying to figure out ways. And of course, I've got Johnny's Music Mondays, which is
pretty impressive.
Happens every fortnight, every Monday. Watch out for that.
Yeah. What inspired that?
Well, I've actually been doing that for like 4 years now. I was still in Benin at the time. I was trying to figure out ways to be able to constantly engage with my fans and, still, when I'm not releasing music, I'm still keeping them, still giving them music, still giving them. So every Monday, it used to be every Monday, I would just sit on my keyboard, play the keyboard, sing like a song that people are familiar with or an original song, reimagine it, and, just to have like a different vibe. And people loved it, so I started to do it more often.
It's been like 4 years every other Monday now.
Exactly.
Would you ever do anything in entertainment outside of music?
I probably will.
Acting.
I
comedy.
love that. I have a thing for acting. I have a thing for movies. I'm a movie freak. I've probably seen all the great movies that have come out between 1990 and now. Even like the production. So every time I watch a movie, I'm always going to Wikipedia to check what happened with this movie, how's the reception, how did they produce it and all that. So I'll probably get into movies at some point.
Okay.
Even if not acting, maybe producing movies and all that stuff.
We should be looking out for that.
And I'll get in the restaurant business as well. I'm a pretty good chef.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I like to blow my trumpet.
Chef Drill.
Chef Drill.
Or Chef Johnny.
I've never thought of that.
That'd be an interesting one. You don't get to talk about your personal life a lot, but a lot of people get very interested in stuff like that. So let's just be clear.
Yeah.
With that, are you in a relationship now?
Yes.
With
my music.
I knew you were going to say that, and I hate that so much. Don't be that cliche guy.
I'm in relationships.
Okay.
Yes. With my music and some other people.
So there's multiple partners?
Not multiple partners, it's just...
You said some other people, so I just wanted to be sure. So if you think you are the girlfriend, there's other people besides you.
I didn't say that.
Is what I just said. Well, thank you very much for being here
Thank
today.
You so
all the
much
best. Looking forward to all the great things that will still come in 2020.
Absolutely.
I'm sure it's going to be a good year. I will give you a handshake, but I can't, unfortunately. And yes, Rikasani Chike, we're waiting for the verses. He just challenged you guys. Thanks for being here. I'll see you guys in a moment. Welcome back. Yes, still continuing our conversation on rape and the incidents of rape that's sort of bedeviled the country in the last couple of days. And I have here with me Mr. Muyiwa Agunbero, who's a lawyer. Thanks for joining us today. And I just want to look at the legal side of things, because that seems to be the constant conversation. And I was talking with some guests earlier, and the issue of proof seems to be the toughest one. It looks like a lot of people never bother reporting these cases because there doesn't seem to be, conviction rates of rape in Nigeria is abysmal. to put it mildly. How do we start to do better with that?
Well, like you said, rape is a very sensitive thing, and the requirement, what you have to prove is a little bit big, or how do I put it?
Yeah.
You have to prove, first of all, prove beyond reasonable doubt. Then the issue is, what evidence have you got? Now, when it comes to rape, you need medical evidence that you have to prove before the courts. Now, medical evidence has to be taken about almost immediately when the incident happened. So there seems to be a lot of lag in between when the offense is committed and when they are reported. Now, when you have that kind of lag, automatically it's difficult for you to secure conviction. So because people don't report, they don't seek for help, they don't go to medical places, NGOs that can help them in situations like that, to give them what they can do and how to go about it. So that lag seems to give many of the accusers an opportunity to get away with some of those cases.
I mean, the burden of proof is on the accuser, or the victim, let's just put it that way. Is there any way these things can start to shift a little to the person who's accused? I know you're supposed to be innocent or proven guilty, but is there, why some people believe, why is there no burden at all on the perpetrators?
Well, it's not like there's no burden at all on the perpetrator, but what you have to do first, because you are the one making the complaint, you are the one making the allegation, you have to establish what you have said. So it then puts the obligation on the prosecutor to, first of all, establish that that incident happened. Well, it's not, at that point, it might not be beyond reasonable doubt yet. So we have what we call the imaginary scale, which the judges have to use. They will put the evidence of the prosecutor on one side, and then once the scale is tilting one way, then the burden shifts to the to the complainant, to the accused person, to now prove, more or less like tilting the balance to his own side. So it's not like the accused doesn't have anybody to prove anything at all. It's just that you have to establish your own case first, and then before they then discharge the body.
Yeah, I mean, we also talked about the age of consent earlier, and the legislation, I guess, the burden is on legislation. But I mean, the courts also make laws. Is this something that we think is going to change anytime soon? Because there's an argument that as long as the age of consent in a lot of parts of Nigeria is 11, certain things will still be gotten away with. Because, to be honest, can a child give consent, How do we start to have that conversation with our legislators or even the courts to start shifting this?
Unfortunately, things like that, things very fundamental as age of consent, has to be by statute. We already have statute that fix those age of consent as a certain limit. So there must be a law that will have to amend those laws and put them where they're supposed to be. A judge cannot just wake up and say, probably out of judicial activism, and say, oh, because I feel that the justice of this case deserves for the age to be lowered. A judge cannot do that. So that's when we need the legislature, the National Assembly, and the houses of assemblies to come into, to assist in making the case a lot easier for people to be able to prove all these things.
Yeah, and there's so many laws. I mean, we had so many sexist laws. For the longest time, you couldn't get a Nigerian passport without your husband approving. Some of these things boggle the mind that this is 2020 and these things still exist. What can Nigerians do to sort of put pressure on their legislators? Because, I mean, lawyers can only do their part in the courtroom, but the legislature is also filled with lawyers.
Yes,
and, a good number of people who are lawmakers are lawyers. And so Nigerians wonder, how can we do more to, sort of put pressure on these people as lobbyists, for example?
What we have to continue to do is to demand of our lawmakers to represent us. If you look at the mode of the country today, everybody is clamoring for one form of reform or the other for sexual offenses. And we have to keep pressure on them to make the right laws. It's not just when we're talking about how to pass the budget and all of those things. We should start talking about things that affect the lives of everybody. And these are very basic issues. So we just have to keep pressure on them for them to amend all these laws.
Yeah, and with the courts itself, we'll still go back to the first question I asked with regards to proof. A lot of people see and hear certain things, but the laws are still a certain way. We're talking about the burden of proof. Are there reforms that can be done with regards to what the burden of proof will be? There was a pretty popular case from, I think, last year with Busola Dakolo and the pastor from Koza. You know, the judgment, or there was an injunction or whatever it was, and it turns out that he was basically exonerated from everything. That's not to say that he was guilty, but a lot of people wondered, how did we reach that judgment? The victim is still claiming that, you know, what happened happened. You know, how do we start to settle that sort of dichotomy where we feel like the laws are still not reflective of, you know, supporting victims?
You know, what we have to bear in mind is that law is, as they call it, three-way justice.
Yes.
Justice to the accused, to the state, and to the complainant. So if you amend the law one way to suit probably the victim today, anybody can be a victim of a false accusation. So the law still has to be fair. So there has to be a balance with what we do. And with the case that you mentioned, the Dakolo's case, I think, like what I said before, there's a lag between when the incident happened and when...
so it's harder to prove cases like that.
It's just difficult to come to grips with that. So there could be reforms that have to be looked into to see whether how we can do this thing. But the best thing is still to make sure that evidence is taken as soon as the incident happened, so that even if prosecution is not going to happen immediately, but it's preserved until a later stage, that when the complainant wants to take up a charge against the accused, and then you have an easier burden to discharge.
Yeah, people who have said the death penalty should be issued for people who are found guilty of rape. You know, do you think the punishment or the punitive measures out there for rape rapists are stringent enough?
Well, there's been a clamor for removal of death penalties all around the world. But in the last 2 or 3 years, I see it coming back. People now saying, oh, death penalty seems to be what should be the appropriate punishment for certain offenses and all that. I can, you know, without what the victims are going through is a lot. And you can tell somebody that has been through it to say that death penalty is not suitable for that kind of offense. But, you know, we have to pull all these things through the system and see what is appropriate for what. So we can't just start clamoring for death penalty for them. There are systems, there are ways to measure what is appropriate for each offense, and we just have to make sure that when we want to reform the law, it goes through that process again and be sure of what we are doing.
And just before we go now, if someone who's watching now who's raped, male or female, what should you do? What are the legal what's the legal way to go about things?
For me, I think the very first thing that you have to do is, there are two of them. You probably need to go and make a complaint at the police station. They might then refer you to the appropriate government hospital or where they think evidence can be taken immediately. And I've seen people advocating that even when an offense like that happens, don't change your clothes. Don't change anything. Go like that. Make a report so that they can take the evidence as it is. So you need to get in contact with the law enforcement agencies. And also, I'm aware of non-government organizations that are into things like this. They have experience. They have the contact. If you don't want to go to the police station, get in contact with NGOs who can take up the case for you and fight for you. So that's what I would advise. Thank
you very much. Don't stay silent. I know it's a very hard sort of crime to report, especially for victims, but most importantly, if you can, speak to somebody. If you don't feel like you can go directly to the authorities, there's so many non-governmental organizations out there who support rape victims. And men, please stop raping. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next Sunday.